tayo, may mga mahal sa buhay. Inaalagaan, pinoprotektahan. Magulang, asawa, anak, kapatid, kamag-anak. Ibibigay mo sa kanila ang lahat. Tamang alaga, gamot na kailangan. Pero madalas, mahal ang magmahal. Mahal na kasi ang ibang gamot. Di kayang araw-arawin. Kaya wag mahihiyang magtanong. Dahil para sa RiteMED, di dapat mahal ang magmahal. Para sa lahat, gamot na maaasahan. Di kalidad na, abot kaya pa. Kayang araw-arawin. Kayang panindigan. Kaya ang iba't ibang sakit. Dahil ang RiteMED, para sa lahat.
Ayan, magandang umaga sa lahat ng nakatutok ngayon sa Tuesdays with RiteMED. Ako si Kaiser Estrada, ang inyong host. Ang Tuesdays with RiteMED ay isang programa na inilunsad ng RiteMED upang magbigay ng importanteng kaalamang pangkalusugan na maaari nating magamit sa pang-araw-araw na buhay. Ang anxiety ay isang natural na reaksyon ng ating katawan kapag tayo stressed. Para sa mga bata, maaaring ang sanhi nito ay stress sa school o pressure na nararamdaman sa darating na exam. So kapag nararanasan ng anxiety ng mga bata, maaari itong makaapekto sa kanilang mood at concentration. So ngayong umaga, samahan natin si Ms. Rizason Go Tian-Ng, isang clinical psychologist, para alamin kung paano nga ba natin matutulungan ang ating mga anak para ma-overcome nila ang anxiety. Lalo na sa panahon ngayon. O ayan, magandang umaga at welcome sa Tuesdays with RiteMED.
Hello and good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yan. Good morning po. I think this topic is very relevant also nowadays, no? Dahil ang daming adjustments nga na nangyayari from yung mga bata nag-homeschool na ngayon, no? From parents also adjusting sa mga nag-homeschool na mga kids. Kaya marami din sa mga bata ang nagkakaroon ng anxiety. So, paano nga ba ito? Before tayo magsimula, paano ba malalaman ng mga magulang kung mahiyain nga lang ba ang kanilang anak o meron na silang anxiety?
Oo. Mahirap minsan malaman, no, kung yung bata ba ay talagang mahiyain or anxiety, no, yung nararanasan. Pero ang malalaman natin dito is ang pagkamahiyain is really a personality trait. It's being very introverted ng bata, no, sa kanyang pakikipagsalamuha sa kanyang mga family, mga friends. Pero yung nararanasan na anxiety, this is usually experienced in a short range of time. Dahil meron siyang trigger, kaya nagkakaroon ng anxiety. Halimbawa, dahil sa merong upcoming exam or merong online recitation, alam mo na yung anxiety na nararanasan niya ay just for that moment. Pero pag ito ay, matagalan talaga for napansin natin yung bata, no, mahiyain talaga for years na mula ng pagkabata, talagang personality trait niya yun.
Okay, so difference niya ay personality at yung isa ay panandalian lamang. Alright, so without further ado, I'll give you the floor, Ms. Riza, para mas mapalawak pa natin at mapalalim pa natin yung kaalaman, lalong-lalo na sa anxiety para sa mga bata. So ayan.
Sige, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kaiser, for the invitations, especially sa RiteMED, kasi tamang-tama talaga yung ating topic today kasi lampas na tayo ng isang taon sa pagiging quarantined and nakikita natin talaga yung mga bata, iba na yung kanilang mundo. So parenting has really been so challenging for all of us, even for myself. I'm a faculty, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I also have to deal with the personality traits of my children. They're also adjusting. I have 3 teenage children, age 19, 17, and 15. Napagdaanan ko na rin yung mga toddlers sila, grade school sila, high school sila. So nakikita ko rin minsan personality trait talaga nila to at minsan din they experience anxiety. And alam ko baka magulat din kayo, pero ako din minsan I also experience anxiety kasi na-affected ako sa mga kinikilos ng mga anak ko. So kailangan natin talaga i-acknowledge that we are really living in an abnormal situation. More than 1 year tayo na mga bata hindi nakakalabas, hindi nakakapaglaro. Minsan lang tayo nakakalabas at pumupunta sa mall, nakakapaglaro sa park. Everything is new. And kung ang IATF nga may guidelines para sa atin, Pero in parenting, there is no manual. And buti nga meron tayong Tuesdays with RiteMED para matulungan tayo, bigyan tayo ng mga magabayan tayo on how to be better parents. So for today, we want to talk about how is it that we can adjust. So let's start. Have you noticed na kung meron tayong halimbawa 2 o 3 anak, masasabi ba natin na yung ating 3-year-old at ang ating 7-year-old o kaya 10-year-old exactly the same ang kanilang magiging response o kaya reaction? 'Di ba usually hindi kasi nga iba-iba ang kanilang edad. So this is what we call developmental psychology, wherein we have to look at our children respective of their age. So what I want to show you is that yung mga mas bata, sila yung mga walang kapasidad para makapagsalita. They don't have a full vocabulary to express what they're experiencing or their emotions. They might not even have a very concrete understanding of what is going on. Baka nga, pag tinanong mo yung 3-year-old, tanongin mo, ano ang quarantine? Baka hindi nga nila alam anong sasabihin sa quarantine, no? For a 3-year-old, kasi nga they don't think in abstract terms. For a middle childhood age na nakikita natin sa picture, sila naman, they have a strong need to play. Sila yung mga bata na parang, Mama, gusto kong maglaro at magtatakbo sa labas. Pero sasabihin natin, anak, bawal kasi may virus. Baka sabihin nila, no, na ano ba yung virus? Virus. Baka yan nga lang ang alam nila, eh, di ba, Kaiser, yung mga bata na, kasi it's very abstract. Sabihin natin na para sila mga tuldok-tuldok sa hangin. Titingin sila, hindi nila maintindihan, but they just really want to play. They're missing their friends and they're struggling learning through an online setup kasi everything is digital. And then for our adolescents naman, sila naman yung mga kailangan nila na yung peer interaction because that's their way of establishing their identity. Ngayon, pagdagdagan mo pa ng element of stress across these ages of children, maraming nagsasabi, yung stress ba, good or bad stress? There's good stress. We call that eustress. Kailangan din natin kasi binibigyan ng challenge ang mga bata. Pero kapag ang stress kasi ay minsan, it is beyond their age capability, no? It is not anymore developmentally appropriate to them, then this is not anymore beneficial to their well-being. In fact, kapag sobra-sobra na yung anxiety ng bata, dito natin nakikita nagkakaroon sila ng meltdown or anxiety na sila. Yung iiyak na sila, tapos sasabihin nila masakit ang tiyan nila, masakit ang ulo nila, akala natin nilalagnat na sila. Pero those are probably signs already of children experiencing anxiety. And too much of this can really lead to burnout and anxiety attacks. And more so, it can become panic attacks. Yung panic attacks, Kaiser, ewan ko kung minsan meron kang naririnig, no? Yung mga panic attacks kasi nagiging somatic na, ibig sabihin, na experience nila sa kanilang body. Wala na siya sa isipan. So yung they shake, they cry, nanghihina sila, no? So those are panic attacks already. And we have to help our children to regulate the emotions. And this is where psychology and parenting can help. So I'd like to bring in what developmental psychology can tell us. And I bring back my mentor, si Dr. Hani Karandang, na tinulungan niya tayo para intindihin how we can become better parents. And she always emphasizes the core values of respecting the wisdom of the child and upholding the dignity of the child. So this morning I have some strategies, pero bigyan ko muna kayo ng ating principles. So principle number 1 is to practice mindfulness. Ang mindfulness kasi is when we become present in the moment. Hindi yung utak natin nagtatatakbo about what happened in the past o kaya nag-aalala tayo for the future. Pero when you are mindful, you are in the moment. Tinitingnan mo kung anong napapansin mo sa anak mo, iba ba ang kinikilos niya. Ikaw din, pinapansin mo yung sarili mo na parang, ano bang nararamdaman ko ngayon? Am I anxious? Am I worried? Kasi yung isang anak ko nilalagnat o kaya nag-aalala ko kasi yung sarili kong magulang, yung aking nanay, hindi rin maganda yung kanyang pakiramdam. But to be mindful is to come back to the present moment. And being mindful helps you to be attuned to your children. Para bang may connection tayo. So which brings me to my second point. It's important that we connect with our children. Let's listen to understand and not just to reply. 'Di ba? Minsan, Kaiser, napansin natin pag nakikipag-usap tayo sa mga kaibigan natin, meron na tayong script. Meron na tayong gustong sabihin, 'di ba? Pero we're missing the point. Pero when we want to connect to our friends with our children, parang let's be mindful and stop muna. Stop muna lahat ng mga ginagawa natin at makinig tayo. So we call that active listening. We use our nonverbal and our verbal so that we can convey to our children that we're paying attention to them. Hindi yung parang nakikinig nga tayo sa bata pero yung mata natin nasa cellphone o kaya yung katawan natin nakaganyan para tayo naka-tune out, 'di ba? So it's important we give our children the cues that we are listening. And when we're also connecting with our children, let's listen fully to them. Hindi yung op anak, dali-dalian mo naman magsalita kasi may gagawin pa si mama eh. Or ano ba 'yan? Yung we don't want to dismiss our children's emotions. So we have to attune to them. And the third one, also in part of connecting to our children is let's catch the emotion that our children are saying. Kasi minsan hindi natin naiintindihan na kinakabahan na pala sila, nalulungkot sila. And the more that we minimize what our children are saying, the less that we are connected to our children and the more that the more they are invalidated. So ang invalidation, malaking halaga to sa psychology kasi we want to validate the emotion so that we can connect. And then, the third one that I'm pointing out here in our principles is let's learn to collaborate with our children. I learned this so many years ago when I was a preschool child. When we want to engage our children, we want to collaborate with them. Empower them as a learner. Parang di natin tinitingnan ang sarili lang natin as the learner, but we also want to engage the children, tapping into their wisdom that they know something as well. So, ang gusto ko rin iparating sa ating mga audience about what are the strategies. These are very specific strategies that at least, in the next few days that they can practice. The very first strategy to help our children who are experiencing anxiety is let's help them visualize who is their favorite character. So, halimbawa sa mga batang mahilig sa anime, no, meron tayong mga characters tulad ni Naruto o kaya ni Katara, no, from Avatar. Ako siguro, Kaiser, mas makaka-relate tayo dito sa mga Marvel. So, sino ba sa mga characters dito yung mga favorite natin? And let's ask our children, kung may opportunity maging superhero ka, anong gusto mong gawin? Anong gusto mong powers na gagawin mo today? Tapos, paano tayo magiging better world? So, we're engaging our children, we're helping them visualize, and we're giving them a sense of hope. Para kahit na naka-quarantine tayo, we don't take away their hope. Another one is that what we can help them to adjust to because naka-quarantine tayo is we can tap into our creativity and resourcefulness. We want our children to cope in this pandemic. So it's important, let's explore what is inside our house to get them engaged in. So some examples that you can use is yung mga old Manila paper natin, i-tape natin sa mga wall natin, tapos let's have our children use their crayons at mag-drawing sila, or maybe just use some baking or cooking equipment that you have sa kitchen and let them play. Halimbawa, yung mga measuring cups, measuring spoons, yung mga lumang container ng mga pagkain nila, they can put water and then mag-pouring lang sila. So, these are some strategies so that the children can play at the same time they're learning. We can use mga sponges, tapos magpa-press lang sila. So it helps them with their small muscles and their large muscles. And as they manipulate their environment, they can also, parents can also use yung mga lumang magazines nila. Mag-cut out lang sila ng mga pictures. Idikit nila, tapos sabihin natin, anong kwento ang pwede nating mabuo? O halimbawa dito, may isang bata. Tapos you can ask the child, anong nasusunod mangyayari? So parang nagkakaroon tayo ng creativity, creating stories, engaging the children. And siguro ang pinaka-importante dito sa what we can do is the family. Kailangan ang family talaga is very supportive because everyone in this quarantine, the only people that the children have is their family, and there is a need to build strong family relationships because the family provides stability and security. Parang in the midst of all of this, maybe a good challenge for us to evaluate what is important para bang bottom line, magkasama tayo bilang pamilya, di ba? So, I think that's very important for this time in quarantine is to just build on strong relationships with the family. Magkaroon tayo ng mga game night or kaya mag-baking. Just the other day, I was baking with my son yung brownies na hindi naman talaga exactly successful pero napagtsatsagaan. So, Kaiser, I don't know if you're into cooking or baking, pero I think just to help the children, draw them out from their room. Kasi kung hindi, nagdi-digital playing lang sila. So, what matters most is the product na nag-enjoy tayo sa process na ito. And so, parang ang aking takeaway for today sa ating Tuesdays with RiteMED is my SAVE principle. It's an acronym for what works with children. The first S is sense your child. Bilang magulang, we have the best eye to see ano ba ang nagbabago sa ating anak. Sense them, both their verbal and non-verbal. A, be an ally to your child. Kahit anong mangyari, magulang tayo. We have to convey to them that we are their allies. We are not the enemy. Kapag pinipigilan natin sila maglaro at minsan nagagalit ang mga anak natin, parang we have to communicate with them in a way that we are their allies. V, validate their emotions. This is really my battle cry talaga is validate. It doesn't mean that we agree with them. Validate just means that we are accepting what they are saying. Para ba hindi na tayo defensive pag nagkukwentuhan tayo. Kasi kapag hindi tayo nagva-validate, parang pakiramdam natin hindi tayo pinapakinggan, hindi tayo ina-accept. And the last is E, empower your children at this time. Otherwise kasi they feel hopeless, they feel helpless. So that's the SAVE principle, my takeaway for today's Tuesdays with RiteMED. Thank you.
All right. So ayan, before we entertain the questions of the people, meron muna akong personal question. So, Ms. Riza, paano ba, for example, na ikaw ay isang parent, tapos nakikita mo or napapansin mo na nagkakaroon ng panic attacks yung bata, di ba? How do you deal with it firsthand na nandyan sa harapan mo? Kasi usually, lalo na pag first time mo siyang na-experience sa anak mo, maaaring magpanik ka rin. So kung nagpapanik attack yung bata, nagpanik ka din, edi dalawa kayong nagpapanik. So ano yung dapat bang gawin? Ano yung action na dapat gawin ng isang parent para mapakalma yung anak niya at para to get things under control as well?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Kaiser. Kasi sabi mo nga, kapag
All right. Miss Riza?
iiyak ang bata at papunta na rin sa panic. Yes, I'm here. Yes. So ang question natin is, how do we help our children who's experiencing panic attack? When you yourself as a parent, baka naman ikaw rin nagpa-panic attack and it's not gonna help our children. Kasi nakikita nila na si mama nagagalit, matatakot ang bata at yung bang it will aggravate the situation. So first thing that you can do is you remember when I said mindfulness. Let's be mindful that it's your child that is panicking, it's your child that is crying, hindi ikaw. You have to be the source of calm. So you have to talk in a calm way and you say, anak, anong nangyayari, anak? And then hold your son, hold your child, ganon, para to ground the child. Tapos you might want to like press and tap the face kasi this helps ground the child, yung kanyang physical sensation to come back. And then you help the child say, anak, natatakot ka ba? Akala mo ba na nagagalit si mama? Help be the one to verbalize the emotion. And then the child who's still crying, expectedly, hindi siya makasalita, sabihin niya, ganun, okay, kalma lang tayo anak, magbilang tayo. Because counting And touching the child helps ground the child to calm the child. You have to be the one to help regulate the child. Ang tawag natin dyan, co-regulate the emotions. And then, give few minutes daw, wag natin sinigaw. Tama na, kasi nape-pressure lalo yung bata. So, yun.
All right. That's
Okay.
also a very good answer no sa question na yan kasi para rin maturuan natin yung mga parents no who's experiencing that situation sa mga kids nila lalo na sa panahon ngayon. Ito naman ay isang katanungan mula kay Robin Serrano. Sabi niya, "Hi Doc, does the environment of the child affect or increase the possibility of having anxiety?" So nakakaapekto ba yung environment ng isang bata sa pagtaas ng posibilidad na magkaroon ng anxiety yung mga kids?
Yes. Yung environment na to, I don't know if it's a physical environment. But if we're talking about adequate space, kasi minsan wala talaga tayong magawa, no? If yung tinitirhan nila is a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom apartment. But nevertheless, what's important is that environment is very supportive. Ibig sabihin na ang bata ay nakakapaglaro, ang bata ay meron siyang mga opportunities to learn, to grow, to interact with family members, with playmates. Kasi regardless of a physical space, ang importante, the environment is a safe environment for the child.
Alright. So ito naman ay isang katanungan mula kay Charlene Torres. Sabi niya, as parents, what are the healthy practice or to-dos para po maging okay ang paglaki or ang mental health ng kids namin? So meron ba dapat silang practices na I think it's also very relevant, no? Kasi we always dismiss yung mental health ng mga anak or nating lahat kasi the way tayo pinalaki rin nung dati, hindi naman masyado iniisip yung mental health, no? So nowadays ba, ano ba dapat yung practices para okay yung mental health ng mga bata?
Alam mo, I love that question. Kasi tama sabi mo, Kaiser, tayo nung bata tayo, we didn't know so much about mental health. Even our parents, we call that intergenerational practice, no? Kung anong natutunan nila sa sarili ng magulang, they just practice it na lang. And we now, in the 21st century, we have the opportunity to do better and be better. And circumstances are really different and mental health is really being upheld nowadays. So I go back again to what my mentor said about upholding the dignity and the wisdom of our children. So when we're talking to our children, tulad ng sinabi ko, let's be mindful of ourselves and our children. Let's connect to our children and let's collaborate. I still go back to that kasi regardless kung nasa anong bansa tayo, regardless kung nasa online or nasa face-to-face classes, and regardless of how many children you have, I think it's still important that you maintain your relationship with your children, that you are attuned to them. Yung bang positive ang relationship natin. So I go back again to also what I said earlier, na let's validate our children. Not that we are disciplining them harshly or loosely. I have 3 children and I'm proud to say, hindi ko pa sila napalo, hindi ako yung tipong magulang na sumisigaw kasi I really collaborate with my children.
Ayan. So thank you for the question, no, Charlene. Sabi rin ni RR Abulencia, very good topic. So ayan, maraming salamat sa lahat ng masugid na tagapanood ng Tuesdays with RiteMED. So ito, medyo passionate yung question niya, Doc. I think it's also in relation with mental health. Ito ay mula kay Marlene Pailmao. Sabi niya, this question is more for us parents, Doc. In the Philippines, mental health care is not that good. There's a stigma to the point na for us parents, it affects us in a way na we want to deny rather than accept na baka kailangan ng psychological help ng kids natin. So based on your professional experience, how do we overcome or take the first step ba in acceptance? Ayan, napaka ano ng question ni Marlene Pailmao. So, ano ba yung first step natin? Kasi of course, no, we have to take small steps at the very beginning. Tapos it makes ripples of, large effect na sa lahat ng tao. So, ano ba dapat yung first step natin para ma-accept natin? Kasi usually, di ba, pag yung mga bata, meron ng symptoms na nakikita natin, dinidismiss lang natin yung fact na ganyan. Sabi, arte lang yan. Ganito lang yan. So,
Oo.
ano ba yung first step para ma-accept natin ito?
Alam mo, I love Marlene's question, and I love also, Kaiser, the way how you are able to rephrase it. Kasi you capture the essence or the spirit behind the question. May sinabi ka kanina about the ripple effect. So tama din, but it takes the first drop to create that ripple. So parents are really powerful instruments here in this arrangement. And the answer here lies in the last word in her question, which is acceptance. So bilang parents, rather than denying and being very defensive, which also conveys a message to the children na parang, ay, may kasalanan ng bata. Ganon. So tayo, tanggapin natin that children are different. Some are differently abled, some are iba ang pace ng bata. Yung isa mas mabilis, yung isa mas mabagal. Accept lang natin yon. And we have to watch our language kasi when we want to say mas matalino, ibig sabihin yung isa, hindi matalino o bobo. So we have to watch our language na they are just different. They have a different pace. One has a different talent. One is more skillful in one area. I-accept lang natin na our children are just really differently gifted. Tapos, we have to also convey this to our children na, anak, kasi si mama kailangan niya ng tulong para maging mas magaling na magulang ako para maturuan din kita ng maayos. So, may kakausapin ako na parang special teacher o kaya isang psychologist. Okay ba? Nakausapin natin siya. So in that way, you open up the conversations na you will seek help for psychology, and yung bata, hindi rin siya matatakot. And everyone is involved, hindi lang yung bata, but yung magulang din. And the earlier that we can intervene for our children, the earlier that also that we can help our children adjust in this quarantine life.
Yeah. So, hindi masamang humingi ng tulong. Alright.
Exactly.
So,
Oo.
ito, I think this is also a very relevant question mula kay Nits Lobato. Sabi niya, good morning po. Yung 8-year-old ko po parang may anxiety na parang may anxiety na magkasakit kaming parents niya because of COVID-19. Paano po siya matutulungan para hindi po siya matakot?
Wow, that's very valid for an 8-year-old. And that's exactly what I mean. Kapag developmental age nila, they don't have a full understanding of what's going on outside. So parents can also talk to the children, understand what is their anxiety all about. So number one, open up the conversation. Anak, parang may sinasabi ka kagabi kasi sabi mo natatakot ka. Ano yun? So allow the child to express. Kasi if a child is not allowed to express, the child will internalize it. Diba, Kaiser? Kapag alam niya na papagalitan ako o pagtatawanan ako, I'll just keep it to myself. I won't say anything. But allow the child to say, kasi mama, narinig ko sa TV, ganito, yung nagkasakit, may ganon. So natatakot ka kasi parang akala baka si mama magkasakit. So ano pwede natin gawin? Kapag superhero ka, anong gusto mo gawin ni mama? Sige, mag-vitamins tayo. Halika, tulungan mo si mama, hanapin natin yung vitamins ni mama. O yung alcohol ni mama, kunin mo, ilagay natin sa bag. So in that way, you're helping the child assuage yung kanilang anxiety. And the child is also part of the help. Kasi siya ang nag-alcohol, siya ang nagbigay ng vitamins. And then, pag umimali si mama, sasabihin niya ng mama, anak, andito na si mama, halika maghugas tayo ng kamay. So these are very concrete ways para ang anxiety ng bata ay hindi na tumaas. There.
Ayan. So ito siguro, Doc, will entertain our final question for today. So ito naman ay mula kay Betty Kang. So sagutin natin dalawa kasi medyo may dalawang similar questions. Isa kay Betty Kang and isa kay Joy Garay. Sabi ni Betty Kang, is it possible for a kid at such a young age to be diagnosed with both anxiety and depression at the same time? Sabi rin ni Joy, sabi niya, maaari bang magka-anxiety ang bata at ADHD at the same time? So, two different spectrums ito. So, anxiety and depression, pati anxiety and ADHD. So, possible ba yun na mangyari sa isang bata?
Okay, that's parang two different questions, but they're both related, no? Anxiety is an emotion that any one of us can experience. It does not discriminate kung lalaki, babae, LGBTQ, or mayaman, mahirap, or any difference, no? But anxiety is the feeling that when stress, there is a trigger which is called stress, and our reaction is called anxiety kasi hindi tayo sanay. We are outside our comfort zone. So, if you're trying to learn a new skill, halimbawa, I wanted to try baking. The very first time I'm going to try baking, anxiety yon. Kasi hindi ko alam anong gagawin o sasabihin ko eh. Like, siguro tayo, no, yung first time natin lalabas sa TV, that's something that's very anxiety-provoking. Now, when that anxiety is repeated over time, hindi siya na-address. And sabi mo, Kaiser, kanina, no, yung it is dismissed, invalidated for a child. Over time, the child loses the capacity to handle that anxiety. The losing of that capacity, the helplessness, the hopelessness becomes depression because it is now internalized. And that depression can also be short-term, it can also be long-term. Now, ang ADHD, iba naman po ito, no? ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder where there is something about the brain that does not allow a child to extend attention in a task. So, pwede sila maging comorbidity, ibig sabihin sabay sila na nangyayari, but they're not related. But comorbidity meaning may ADHD and it can it can exist at the same time with anxiety. So yun. Pero anxiety is really a normal reaction. Normal lang po yan. Huwag tayo mag-alala na pag ang anak natin ay nagiging anxious. Sasabihin natin, hala, baka may problema ang anak ko, dadalhin ko na sa espesyalista. Hindi. Bilang magulang, we can provide the first band-aid. Parang band-aid solution. Kausapin natin ang mga anak natin. Huwag nating i-dismiss yung emotion na yan. Let's allow the child to express what they're scared of. Talagang, I want to emphasize, huwag ho natin maliitin, huwag natin tuksuhin ang bata, huwag ho natin silang i-compare na, bakit si kuya, kaya niya, ba't ikaw iiyak-iyak ka dyan? Let's not compare kasi it makes them feel small, insecure, and inadequate. So we want to validate that emotion, and then, like what I said dun sa coping strategy natin, kung ikaw ay superhero, anong gusto mong gawin para magbago or matulungan ka? Ganun. And then, collaborate, connect with your child, use the SAFE principle so that anxiety can be alleviated. There.
Alright, so ayun, napakaganda ng ating mga takeaways, no, for today. Before we end, meron po ba tayong final message sa lahat ng manonood natin ngayong umaga?
This is very trying times for us, pero what I just want to share to all parents, whether you are a guardian, a lolo, or a lola, I pay tribute again to my mentor, si Dr. Honey Karandang, na respetuhin natin ang mga bata, ang kanilang angking talino. Kahit na sila ay 2 years old, 3 years old, or kung ano pang edad nila, lahat tayo ay merong angking talino. Let's respect their wisdom and the dignity of our children.
Ayan. So huwag kalimutang i-like ang Facebook page ng RiteMED at abangan ng aming weekly episodes para direktang makapagtanong ng live kasama ang ating mga espesyalista. Kung gusto magpa-deliver ng gamot straight to your doors, bisitahin ang Med Access page sa Facebook at magpabili ng gamot. At para sa inyong daily vitamins at ibang medicines, you can also check RiteMED products available in Lazada and Shopee by typing Right Store. So next week, abangan ating anniversary special ng Tuesdays with RiteMED. So naka-isang taon na po tayong lahat dito sa Tuesdays with RiteMED na every Tuesday nakikinig at nakasubaybay kayo. So maraming salamat sa patuloy na pagsuporta sa ating programa. So mag-abang sa ating mga sorpresa at see you next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Magandang umaga po sa lahat at maraming salamat.